Alrighty, check. There we go. The audio is finally working. Looks like it is about that time to get started today. But first and foremost, before we jump into everything, for everybody that's on here already, I just wanted to thank you very much for your time and your attendance here today. I know there's a billion different videos you could be watching on YouTube, billion different ways you could be spending your time, and I really appreciate you carving the time out of your day. Give it a couple more minutes for everybody to jump in, but for anybody in the chat so far, I love making these interactive sessions, so I'd love to know where in the world are you listening in from today, and what types of events are you throwing? To give you all a little bit of context, my name is Sam Jameson with the Eventbrite Boost CX team, and over the past 4 years, I've been helping event creators of all different verticals of events, all different sizes of events, use the power of social media marketing to ultimately bring people together, build their brands, and sell out events. And today I want to share a lot of the learnings that I have learned over the last 4 years with you, show you what marketing tools actually make sense for some of your objectives and the budgets that y'all are working with, and then show you how you can actually use tools within Eventbrite to help you achieve these marketing goals. As we go along, if any of you have any questions, anything I could explain in a bit more detail, please feel free to slow me down. And for anyone that tried to join the stream last week, my apologies. I was out sick with COVID, so thank you very much for being here this week if you are back. Awesome, y'all. So jumping into it, a quick agenda for today. So first and foremost, we're going to go over some of the most common marketing challenges that most of us face and hopefully some solutions to those challenges. What exactly is Eventbrite Boost and what are these marketing tools that actually make sense for what I might be doing? And then how can we ultimately crush ticket sales, sell out our events with Facebook and Instagram advertising? So first and foremost, generally what we found, and personally to give you a little bit of my backstory, I started in a 1350 cap venue up in the Bay Area, out here in California. I was the in-house multimedia photographer, and they needed somebody to step up to the plate to handle some of their event marketing. And personally thinking back, I remember how challenging this was for me, so I just really want to empathize with any of you. If event marketing has been a challenge for you in the past, or it seems very intimidating, it is when you're getting started. But I ultimately want to make it so that hopefully it isn't as intimidating for you and you have a clear direction on where to get started and what tools to actually use. Many of the reasons why we find event marketing is difficult is one, we don't necessarily have guidance on what the best campaign or best strategy to employ at any given point in time is. A lot of times, tools are either too expensive or kind of out of our budget range or not specifically built for us in the events industry. A lot of these tools are built for somebody over at Coca-Cola with a Harvard MBA and $1 million marketing budget and a team of 50 interns. A lot of us just don't have enough time to take a course like Facebook Blueprint or a Google Ads certification course and learn these various tactics. And then oftentimes when we do take that plunge, it feels like we're looking at hieroglyphics and we can't make sense as to how that data translates to various things like ticket sales. And empirically, what we have found, Eventbrite creators that are using these marketing tools within Eventbrite Boost on average are selling 16% more tickets than Eventbrite creators that aren't. This literally boils down to something as simple as even using a Facebook event feature to publish your event to Facebook, or sending out a specifically timed email campaign to your past buyers right before your event to get them to purchase. So let's cover a couple different ways that with Eventbrite Boost, we are trying to create an all-in-one marketing platform to enable you to have a one-stop shop for all of your marketing needs directly inside of Eventbrite that's seamlessly integrated with the events you are creating. So first and foremost, to let you know where you can find this, if you haven't seen this so far in Eventbrite, if you look for the megaphone icon over on the left-hand side, this is going to take you into Eventbrite Boost, which is Eventbrite's marketing arm. So let's go over a couple of the various features to hopefully point you in the right direction of what features should I actually be using, or maybe what are some that I haven't been using that would be really good to add to my arsenal. So first and foremost, let's talk a little bit about Facebook events. This is the easiest thing that you can possibly do after you create your event on Eventbrite to start marketing your event. The real only requirement here is you do have to have a Facebook page. You can't do this if you don't happen to have a Facebook page. But the premise here is once we create on our event on Eventbrite, we can use the Facebook event tool to easily publish that event we've created into a Facebook event. Now, your question might be, Sam, I know I can do this on Facebook itself. I just go there. Why would I do this in Eventbrite? One, we're going to save you time. You're not going to have to copy all of this information. It's going to make it a lot easier to build the event. But from a sales standpoint, This uses the embedded checkout that you can only use if you're using this feature, so your customers can actually purchase tickets directly within Facebook itself and buy for your event, making it a frictionless buying process. And Facebook events are incredibly important to build awareness, build social proof, and they're a really good organic marketing arm as well as, let's say, for example, you get 1,000 people that RSVP to your event. You, as the host, can actually go into that Facebook event, post about the event, and engage with everyone that's showing interest in that event. So, if you have any takeaway of what I'm talking about today, if you are not using the Facebook event feature, make this your first priority after you publish that event on Eventbrite. The next tool is our Share on LinkedIn feature. So we are building out an organic social scheduling tool within Eventbrite, and one of the first iterations of this is the Share on LinkedIn. This really, for the most part, is only relevant for those of you that are B2B or professional businesses. Is generally, if you're throwing a yoga event or a concert event, LinkedIn's probably not going to be the place for you. But it's a very easy tool that if you want to make organic posts to LinkedIn or share one of your Eventbrite events so people have a link to buy tickets, seamless integration with LinkedIn to quickly make organic posts for you. Totally free for you to use. Now, moving on to email campaigns, let's say, for example, literally we woke up tomorrow and every single social media network was gone. Email would still be the tool that we need to be using from a marketing standpoint. Roughly 50% of the entire population of the world is an active user of a specific any specific email service. So email marketing should also be a big focus for you as you continue to market your events. Within Eventbrite Boost, you can use our email tool to send up to 2,000 emails a day, making easily customizable emails about your upcoming events so that your customers have a very nicely presented email to them that has links to purchase tickets, but also uses the Eventbrite branding and the Eventbrite trust. And on average, we see these emails sent via this tool generally have around 30% higher click through rates than emails sent via other services, just tapping into the credibility of Eventbrite's network. And if you're somebody that generally is sending more emails than maybe 2,000 a day, if you hop on any of the Boost paid plans, you can actually send up to 6,000 emails a day. So for any of you that are looking to consolidate costs on your existing email services, or those of you that are new to email marketing and just want to get started, I'd highly recommend use the email tool. Many of the iterations of when we're sending out emails, oftentimes we're sending out an announce when that event is announced or an on sale, so exactly when that event goes on sale. We might be sending something like a month, like a bi-monthly or every couple of weeks newsletter if we have a pretty big volume of events. And then occasionally we're also using email for things like recaps about the events, sending information to as well. Now, the main focus of what we'll be talking about today is how to actually advertise on Facebook and Instagram, how to get your event in front of new eyes, and how to convert those individuals into buyers and attendees of your event. And for any of you in the chat here today that might be advertising multiple events, that maybe are familiar with the concept of calendar advertising, where we carve out a small monthly budget to advertise multiple events, we have a tool called multi-event ads that allow you to take your entire catalog of events that you have on sale with Eventbrite and automate marketing for all of those events with a campaign that you don't even need to build copies. We do this for you automatically. This is an awesome tool. So for any of you that are maybe throwing more than 3 to 5 events in a given location every month, this is an awesome tool. If not, it's probably not too relevant for you. Cool, y'all. So that pretty much covers the breakdown of the main tools within Eventbrite Boost. Let's go ahead and actually hop in to first just show you where to get started with this too as well. So I want to make this very clear to you is I want you to have a good experience in this platform, but I want to clarify that we can't run ads for free. So basically the way it works in our platform is if you want to run these paid social media ads, you're still going to need to pay Facebook or Instagram for the cost of the ads. So if I want to spend $100 on an ad campaign, the way that that works is we set up an ad account with Facebook, which you can kind of think of as the payment method for the account you set up. And if we want to spend $100 on that campaign, that $100 goes directly to Facebook and we don't take a cut of that. However, there is a monthly subscription associated with using this tool in Eventbrite, but our main goal is improve the performance that you're getting from these ads to drive more sales so that the cost of the platform is entirely paid for by the improvements that we bring to the table. So First and foremost, who might this tool actually be useful for when we're specifically talking about the Facebook and Instagram advertising side? This really is going to be useful for those of you that are probably spending more than 250 bucks a month. Generally, from our creators moving from Ads Manager to our platform to run their campaigns, on average seeing around a 20% lift in ticket sale performance. So on average, if you're spending around 250 bucks a month on ads and we get you a 20% increase, that's entirely paying for the cost of the platform. So if you're not really spending a lot on paid ads, you always can try running an ad in this platform just to gauge the effectiveness for you. But you honestly might be better off just running it in Facebook until you scale your brand out more, you have a larger marketing budget to spend, and then we can actually tap into this effectiveness. So first and foremost, when we're getting started here, if we navigate to the marketing section in Eventbrite Boost and then go to the paid social ads section, one of the hardest parts about running a paid social media campaign is we might not know what to focus on depending on where we are at a given point in time. So here in this section, basically what our platform does that's different than Facebook, one, we're going to give you specific recommendations based on how your customers purchase for your events on what the best campaign to run at any given point in time is. Two, based on the data that you actually have available, we're going to craft audiences for you on the back end of things that an agency might do to help you hit these people you're probably not targeting with your campaigns, such as these remarketing audiences, your past buyers, people that interact with you on social media, people that have substantially greater purchase intent than somebody that's just interested in yoga or basketball or something like that, so that we can make sure not only are we getting the attention, so we're getting people into our marketing funnel, but we don't have a drainage clog that's preventing those people from actually becoming purchasers. We're doing remarketing, we're building awareness, we're building that brand so that when your customers are actually in a position where they're more likely to commit to making that purchase based on buyer psychology, they're actually seeing your event and there is awareness going on. So normally all you have to do to get started is use this drop down to choose the event that you would like to promote, and then all you need to do is hit the get started button and we'll give you a recommendation. You also can use the information in this graph here to gain a further understanding of how do your customers buy for your event. So we can see for my online events that I host and I have here, generally on average we see a pretty big spike in sales right when the event goes on sale. But since it's an online event and there's no definitive urgency for people to actually purchase, ticket sales die down for a while, and then as we get closer to the final week of that event, we generally see an uptick. And for many of you, your events are probably going to be selling like this. Maybe right when your event goes on sale, you see a good spike in ticket sales, then all of a sudden the initial hype dies down. The event's a couple months out, especially for something like the summer months where there's so many different events going on, there's so many different things buying and competing for your customers' attention. Ticket sales die down, and then as we get closer, we see that ramp up in terms of ticket sale. So we always want to consider at this point in time, if I was my customer, would I actually commit to buying a ticket for that event? And if the answer to that question is no, maybe instead of having ads that focus on sales, we might want to focus more on building awareness, fostering that social proof about the event, and building that remarketing audience. So as we get kind of in this tail end period, we can really double down and hone in on those that are likely to buy. So let's actually walk you through the process of creating a campaign. Main goal with this is drive more sales than the ads that you're doing on Facebook with better strategies and better audiences. Then two, also better help you understand the data that results from this. So this is going to be our campaign creation process that we have here. The first step is simply entering in the interest that you would like to target. So for those of you that might have ran a campaign on Facebook or Instagram before, the most basic type of targeting that we work with, or even if you'd hit that boost button, put a little money behind a post, and don't really remember filling out any targeting, this essentially is the targeting that Facebook or Instagram is using for your campaigns. So basically, interest, behavior, or demographic targeting allows us to target users on these social media platforms that have an interest or affinity for certain topics. So my event is oriented around digital marketing. So normally this will automatically populate some interest for you. So you could see I have some interests like digital marketing, event marketing, online advertising, social media marketing, etc. Now, I want to encourage you, don't roll with the default options that we give you here. Some of them might be relatively spot on, but you might find some of these are a little too broad, especially if you're not spending a lot of money on an ad campaign. it might be a little bit more beneficial to get narrow. So let's say, for example, I am a yoga event creator. Normally, the way that I would start doing this is first and foremost, I might get rid of a couple interests that I personally don't feel are relevant that were automatically populated. And then I'm just going to type out a word that's big, broad, and related to my event, like yoga. You can't target everything on Facebook, so it's important to kind of toss that fishing net out there and kind of see what's actually in the waters that you could target. So in this case, scrolling through, there's a decent amount of yoga interests, so I might choose yoga. I might try something like health or wellness potentially, but that could be a little bit too broad. So you always want to consider too as well, and just kind of get a feeler for what you could effectively target. A good rule of thumb, y'all, is we probably want to have anywhere between 5 to 10 interests in this section, always prioritizing that quality over quantity. And it ultimately boils down to how big is the estimated size of the audience that you're targeting. So if we were in Los Angeles and we had a couple interests in here, and the estimated audience size was only 1,000 people, we know that's probably way too small and we need to add in additional people. On average, you probably want that above 100,000. Then that's at least assuming that you are in an area that has at least over 100,000 people and you're not in the middle of North Dakota. So the next section here is defining the age range that we want to target. There are two schools of thought that people have towards this. Some people like leaving it open and let Facebook figure it out for them, and they historically in the past have done a pretty good job for this. But if you know for fact that nobody over the age of 40 whatsoever is going to be coming to my event, it's completely okay to narrow this down a little bit more. But it's always very interesting is there are going to be people that want to attend your events that aren't inside the traditional demographic that you think. We see this even with events that our creators host that they're like, nobody's going to drive 2 hours to come to this event. But then there are people that drive out from Arizona to California to attend this event, as that event is something that's really important to them. It's a big part of their life, a car show or something like that. So it's always important to consider, like, you can keep it a little bit broad, but if you're spending a smaller budget, it might potentially be better to get a little bit more narrow with things. And then here we can enter in the locations that we want to target. We're automatically going to pull in the location of the Eventbrite events that you select as well. And you can always save these audiences to use for future reference. Our system on the back end, after you configure the interest, is going to build more audiences for you as well. So we'll include audiences that help you target people that bought from you in the past, people that once they're in the interest audience and they interact with your posts or your content, they're now in a remarketing audience as they've expressed interest. Let's keep showing that event to them, and then ultimately we'll get them to purchase. So our system does what an agency might do for you on the back end with your campaigns. Use the best possible audiences with data that you have available. So you could think about it that instead of putting all of our eggs in one basket, we're hedging our risk and then making sure that we're putting money on the audiences that are actually purchasing tickets to help you get a better return. Now the next step, we're simply setting the schedule and the budget. So when do we want to start the ad, and then when do we want that ad to effectively run? If I could give you a good recommendation for kind of an average budget for a campaign, probably on the bare minimum end, I'd say y'all around 50 bucks. Normally I recommend try to spend around $100 or more, because when you run these campaigns, the amount of money that you spend on the campaign is directly correlated with how many people you reach. If you've ever heard the term CPM thrown around, cost per mille, doesn't make any sense. It's actually like the cost per reaching 1,000 people. So the way that the spend works on here is if we're going to spend $10 on the campaign, normally in a place like the United States, that $10 might reach around 1,000 people. So normally the more you spend, the more people you reach, the more people you get into your marketing funnels, and the better Facebook is actually able to take in all of this data on what's working, what's not working, and then how do we focus in on what's most effective. And y'all, when it comes to schedule, as I had said earlier, it's incredibly important to pay attention to when your customers actually purchase. Let's say, for example, you and I start we're getting into the business of throwing an outdoor beer festival, and we're plopping it in the middle of January in northern Canada, and it's 2 years out from now. No matter how much we spend on marketing, probably how many influencers we get involved with things like that, there isn't going to be definitive urgency for customers to purchase the tickets, so we shouldn't have an expectation that we're going to drive sales. Our expectation should be for awareness. So you always want to be very conscious of when you are actually running your campaigns. Are we reserving budget so that we can focus on advertising during a period when our customers are most likely to actually make that purchase. And if we know they're not likely to make that purchase, we might want to try something like building engagement and awareness, and that should be the focus of what we get from the results of our ad. This next section is simply where we are choosing and building the ad creative that we want for our event here in this section. So generally, we're automatically pulling in some info from the Eventbrite events that have, but you can always upload your own images or videos here in this section. Sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulties here, so apologies I can't give you the full preview that we have, but let's just kind of do a little bit of an example here. Generally, on average, for the text, we're trying to use language that fosters a sense of urgency, so we could say, don't miss your chance to see X event on X date at X location or something like that. So generally, we want to make sure that when we are creating our ad campaigns, we're one, addressing any urgency or giving our customers any context that they might not intrinsically know if they just take a look at the ad. So are ticket sales going to be increasing in price over time, etc.? Where is the event happening? When is the event happening? Basically giving them the kind of general meat and potatoes in the text of your ad. Now, for the image or video section that we have here, we always can pull images or videos from our ad account library. So if we had already uploaded a couple images or videos here in this section, so let's say I had this video right here and I wanted to pull in a couple, it's very easy to add in these assets, and you can also A/B test multiple things. So if you had a couple different variations of the image or video, you don't know which one's going to do better, you can always add in a variation and we'll showcase whichever one performs better. But I would like to stress, y'all, that the image or video, generally, when it comes to advertising in 2020, is the most important part of the entire ad. And if you're not coming to the table with strong creatives that drive people's attention, sometimes our targeting can be absolutely perfect, our timing can be perfect, but if we're not using something that captures people's attention, we need to be conscious of the fact that when we are advertising on social media platforms, we're competing for attention with every other advertiser. And our attention spans nowadays, I'm not going to lie, are pretty darn short. We found that on most social media platforms, if you're not grabbing somebody's attention within the first 3 seconds, it essentially is a lost cause. So I really would recommend come to the table if you can with strong video creatives. Video generally always outperforms images for the campaigns. And this could even be something as simple as you at your event whipping out your phone, making a quick little TikTok video or recording some stock video like on your camera. So like what I sometimes do is I'll just take out my iPhone, record a little footage at an event, go into Instagram, use the Reels function to chop up and make a little preview, save that to my phone, and then now I have a video that if I want to use for my advertisements, I didn't need to pay a company $1,000 to build this, and I have a little nice video that I could use. A lot of times content that feels more DIY is gonna come across as less of an ad and something that's more organic. And the people that come across that particular advertisement might be more likely to engage or interact, as sometimes we have a tendency that when we see an ad and we feel like we're being sold to, we might not necessarily want to engage with it. So again, I'd stress image or video, y'all, is the by far the most important element of your creative. You want to give people context and help them envision in their imagination what would it be like if I were to attend that event. Events are experience driven situations, and we always want to give people context as to what would that experience be like if I were to fork up $50 right now, drive an hour and a half to then go to your event. And then in this section, we could always choose, do we want to send people to an Eventbrite event or a Facebook event, or do we have just a link, a URL that we want to send people to instead? Generally, I'd say send people directly to the Eventbrite event or the event that you're advertising, the ticketing page, if we're in a period where there's urgency for people to purchase. But if we're in a period where there isn't definitive urgency for people to buy, this is where the Facebook events come into play. Facebook events are helpful, especially more so when your primary demographic is on Facebook, as well as the Facebook events address the best of both worlds. So your customers can buy tickets directly within that Facebook event, but if they're not ready to purchase, simply by them visiting that Facebook event, not even hitting interested or going, just engaging with it in any form, they're now in your remarketing audience that the campaigns you create within this system will remarket to. So you get 1,000 people that visit that Facebook event. That's 1,000 new people that we could remarket to, and that might be 10 purchasers at the end of the day if we're assuming a kind of 1% overall conversion rate of people that go through that funnel. So maybe 1,000 people see it, 100 people visit the ticketing page, and then maybe one person purchases at the end of the day. And down towards the bottom, link headline and link description. Generally, for the link headline, you want to have the name of the event and then potentially something like the date or the location. Generally, we don't necessarily have to reiterate the exact same information everywhere within the copy of the ad, but this bottom section is what people will look towards to find context of what happens when I click on this advertisement. So generally for a button text, I'd recommend for the most part use the buy tickets button, as it generally is the most effective one for you to be using. And the link description, the one that we normally auto populate when you choose your event, is generally something like click here to get tickets. But this doesn't even necessarily show on every platform nowadays, and it's an afterthought for the most part. And scrolling up towards the top, you can always get a view of the different variations that we essentially have here in this section too. And y'all, that basically is the last step. So I know this took a little while when we explained it here, but it actually is relatively quick and simple and shouldn't really take you too much more time than building these campaigns in Facebook, but include more audiences that help you drive sales. Run the right strategy at the right time and have something a bit more presentable. So just to kind of recap, in that first step, all we're probably doing is maybe getting rid of a couple interests that are auto-populated and maybe entering in one or two ourselves. You could always narrow down the age range if you want, and then you could also save the audience, as we're probably rinse and repeating the same targeting mix if we find it works for us, if we're not reinventing the wheel and throwing different types of events every single week. Then the budget, we're just defining the budget and the schedule of how long we want it to run. And then in this section, I had a little technical difficulty, so you didn't get to fully see the magic of it. But normally we're automatically going to build this creative for you. So we'll pull in the image from your Eventbrite event. We'll automatically populate text for you and everything here. So all you technically might be doing is changing up the image or video if you have a different one, and then maybe rewording the text into something that's coming from the voice of your brand a little bit better. And y'all, the last step is simply the review and launch step here. So it'll prompt you to sync your Facebook if you haven't already synced it in this section. We also have something called offline conversion tracking, which is just a fancy way of saying like we're going to help you track more sales for your ad campaign, as there have been recent changes to privacy tracking nowadays that make it harder for us to see how our investment in advertising translates to ticket sales. And then this is where we're choosing, what's the Facebook page we want to effectively run that campaign from, what's that ad account that has the payment method on file that we want to pay for this campaign with, and then we could get a breakdown of all of the other sections of our campaign here too as well, just to review it before we go and launch. So yeah, that was pretty much it for the campaign creation process. Let's go ahead and kind of X out of this one really quickly, and then I'm going to show you what it actually looks like when you run a campaign here. Let me pop back into it. And any questions so far? I know I kind of went through a lot of that at lightning speed here. So if any of you have any questions or anything I could better clarify on the strategy or recommendations, please feel free to drop questions in the chat. Cool. So let's go ahead and pop into here and show you what the results of actually running a campaign look like. And let's show you what some of the top dogs, at least in this industry, are doing from an advertising standpoint. So generally, just to kind of reiterate, the main differences between Facebook Ads Manager or why you would effectively want to run it in this platform, first and foremost, we're going to make you more money with your investment on advertising. And the way that we do that is we add in audiences that you're not using. We automatically optimize your budget. So if we scroll down a little bit further, tons of numbers on your screen, but basically each row of these was a different audience that the campaign was targeting. So all this creator had to do was build the interest audience, but we included an audience targeting those that bought from them in the past, visit their social media accounts, interact with their Facebook events, people that are on their mailing list, etc. And then we also had these lookalike audiences, which, if you are familiar with the current meme of the three identical Spider-Mans pointing at one another, it's kind of the same thing. You're giving Facebook a little data, kind of analyzes that pool of people, spits you back a new audience of people that it deems are similar, interested in similar things or similar demographics. So it does the same thing that an interest audience would do, but it helps you not necessarily put all your eggs in one basket. So you could see here, certain audiences here actually drove sales substantially better than others. Of course, that remarketing audience did a really good job of driving sales, which definitely makes sense here in this section. So our system is actually moving budget every 6 to 12 hours from the bad performers to the good performers. You could kind of think of this about buying into, for a stock investor, having a diverse portfolio or investing in things like mutual funds. But let's not talk about investing right now because it's not a fun time. Then this section, we're trying to present you with the most important information front and center. So something that you might not have seen for previous ads that you've ran in the past is how your ads actually translate to ticket sales. So we can see for this creator, they spent around $300 on this campaign and they drove around 4.7K back worth in ticket sales, a 16x return on ad spend, which at this point in time is absolutely crazy. Normally, the average return on ad spend nowadays is around a 2x, but most people are actually opting out of this type of tracking, so sometimes the purchases that result from your ads won't be attributed back to the campaigns you run. So if any of you in the past ran ad campaigns, you saw a lot of good sales data and you don't really see it anymore, it might not necessarily be something you're doing wrong, it's just this new reality of how tracking works in 2020. So if you've never seen this data before, we handle the installation of this for you on the back end. So we really try to present you with the metrics that are most important for your understanding of how your ads are actually impactful on the overall event strategy. And if we scroll down a little bit further, A/B testing multiple audiences, so we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket. And then scrolling down a little bit further, this is the section where we can see the various creatives that we were A/B testing. And I really like this example because this was actually a Facebook event that this creator was advertising. So they used the Facebook event feature within Eventbrite to take that Eventbrite event they made, publish a Facebook event so their customers could buy tickets directly in Facebook. But as an added layer on top of that, they actually ran an ad campaign to help promote that event. And the main benefit here is we know that this campaign actually did a good job of driving sales, so those that wanted to purchase could easily buy directly in Facebook. But for everybody that interacted with this, so for all of these RSVPs that we effectively had, so 1,000 RSVPs where not every one of these customers bought tickets, that's 1,000 new people that we can use to remarket to consistently. They're in the Facebook event. We can post organically in there. So Facebook events are a really good strategy to also employ. The real only downside to them is there's just no real Instagram events at the moment. So if you do have a big demographic on Facebook, fantastic. If you don't really have much of a demographic on Facebook, it's probably not the best thing to do, but I'd still recommend to do it as it's super easy and will definitively always add value to what you have going on. Awesome, y'all. So that was pretty much everything I wanted to talk about today. Let's just take one brief pause kind of at the end here. Do any of you have any questions on the various things that we talked about today? Any questions on how to get started or anything I could clarify in further depth for you? Thank you for those of you that were definitely on here for the whole time as well. I know there are a couple of you in the chat, and I really appreciate you carving the time out of your busy day to hopefully learn and hopefully walk away from here with some new exciting information to empower you advertising your. Awesome, y'all. Well, this looks like a fantastic place to cut it. I hope all of you have a fantastic holiday weekend. Get some good R&R, enjoy yourself, and we will be back again soon with more webinars going on. Take care, and as always, let us know if you have any questions or there's anything we can do to assist.